Spider-Man is one of the biggest superheroes in the world, and because of that, well, he's got one of the best rogues galleries in the world too. But which villain is the most powerful? Who's Spider-Man's most powerful, most dangerous villain? What are they? That's what we're going to find out. The son of the Kingpin, all Richard Fisk wanted to do was dethrone his dad as the Kingpin of crime. So he took on a few different identities, from the schemer to the rose, and tried to take down Fisk. Of course, try as he might, this never really worked, and the best of the rose ever became was a middle management boss in Fisk's crime empire and an alcoholic. The Chameleon is one of Spider-Man's first villains. He actually debuted in the very first issue of Amazing Spider-Man, and he's a master of disguise. One time, after learning Spider-Man's secret identity, the Chameleon even built robot versions of his parents just to mess with him. Some truly sick stuff right there. Antoine Rodriguez was a South American revolutionary, but after being kicked out of his freedom fighting group, well, he was actually recruited by the government he was trying to overthrow, and they transformed him into the Tarantula, basically a fascistic Captain America. However, while Tarantula has a spider right there in his name, he's got no spider powers, just a skilled fighter who likes to use hidden blades. Fritz von Meyer was once a Nazi scientist who was obsessed with killer bees, and one day he found a hive unlike any he had ever seen. The bees showed no fear, an unusual passivity, and a highly developed intelligence. So von Meyer built a device that he hoped would kickstart the bees' killer instincts so they could serve him. But this didn't really work out that way, because the bees ended up killing him, and because it's comics, his consciousness jumped into the swarm of bees, causing him to become the living embodiment of a bunch of bees. Nazi bees. Definitely one of Spider-Man's weirder villains. Like Catwoman, Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat, is a former cat burglar and an on-again, off-again villain for Spider-Man, who's also in love with him and been in a relationship. But what sets Felicia apart is her ability to instill bad luck around her and to other people. Definitely comes in handy when in a fight or stealing. Tombstone was originally a bully named Lonnie Lincoln, whose strength was increased after a science experiment. He gained diamond hard skin that made him invulnerable to bullets and extremely strong. Tombstone became one of Kingpin's top hitmen before he also became one of New York's top crime bosses, regularly facing off against Spider-Man. Although Kingpin has become more of a Daredevil villain in recent years, he's still very much a Spider-Man villain too. While he started out as just a generic mob boss, he's actually gone on to become one of Spider-Man's most dangerous enemies. And he doesn't need any powers to do it, just relying on his massive brute force and all his influence and intimidation. The son of Spencer Smythe, the creator of the Spider Slayers, a bunch of robots that were designed to destroy Spider-Man, Alistair Smythe stepped into his dad's footsteps and also tried to destroy Spider-Man. So he created a bioorganic armor that made him superhumanly strong and is covered in blades and sharp spikes all over, making him a very dangerous opponent. Molten Man is pretty basic, a man covered in molten metal from a science experiment gone wrong. But still, he's incredibly strong and powerful, able to lift up to 40 tons and survive a whole bunch of attacks. And he had the ability to produce an insane amount of heat, melting pretty much everything all around him. After being exposed to the spotted dimension, Dr. Jonathan Ahn grew spots all over his body and gained the ability to start teleporting between dimensions, basically jumping in one spot and coming out in another spot. It actually makes him a seriously powerful villain. He's even technically immortal because of his connection to the spot dimension. but it's really just that the Spot isn't really all that competent, and kinda doesn't use his powers to the best of their potential. Miles Warren was the original Jackal. While he actually is super powerful and transformed himself into a weird jackal person, the main way that he torments Spider-Man is through his ability of manipulation and his cloning. He's an absolute genius, and the world's leading expert in cloning, to the point where he's even cloned Spider-Man before, creating Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider. The Vulture might not be as famous as some of other Spider-Man villains, but he's actually the second villain to ever show up in a Spider-Man comic, and is a founding member of the Sinister Six, so he's definitely an OG. Adrian Toomes is a mad scientist inventor, and he came up with an electromagnetic wing harness that allows him to fly around as he commits crimes. But not just that, it also grants him superhuman strength and durability. I mean, this is like a 70-year-old man fighting against Spider-Man. The suit definitely gives him superpowers to make it a fair fight. Mac Gargan was originally a PI, hired by J. Jonah Jameson to look into the identity of Spider-Man, and J. Jonah also paid him to go through an experimental transformation himself. Scientists mixed his genetics with a scorpion, put him inside a powerful suit of armor, and sent him out into the streets of NYC as Scorpion. Now, for a time, Scorpion was actually one of Spider-Man's most dangerous and powerful enemies. But while he has a lot of the same powers as Spider-Man, and a nice tail to go along with it, Scorpion has kind of dropped down the list as Pete has become stronger and stronger, and more powerful villains have risen up to fight him. Shocker is unique in Spider-Man's rogues gallery. He doesn't hate Spider-Man, doesn't want power or control, is just perfectly content to steal a whole bunch of money, and that's it. And in order to do that, well, he uses his Vibro Shock gauntlets, sending out powerful sonic shocks that can even injure Spider-Man. Kraven the Hunter is a formidable big game hunter. That was all before he enhanced himself using potions, increasing his strength, speed, and durability in order to fight against Spider-Man. Now, he might not be the most physically powerful villain in Spidey's rogues gallery, but Kraven is the world's best hunter. He's studied Spider-Man for years, knows his weaknesses, and knows how to take Peter down. In fact, Kraven has done just that before. He beat and nearly killed Spider-Man, then actually took on the Spider-Man mantle, just to prove that he was better at it. All Dr. Kurt Connors wanted was to help the world and restore his missing arm. However, while he succeeded in regrowing his arm, the experiment also caused him to occasionally transform into a powerful, bloodthirsty lizard. He's incredibly strong and tough, able to regularly overpower Spider-Man in their fights. He can leap up to 20 feet into the air and take any attack that comes his way, and unleash some devastating attacks in return. While you might not have heard much about him, Black Tarantula has proven himself to be a powerful villain to Spider-Man a few different times, with both superhuman strength and the ability to heal from almost any injury. It's pretty much impossible to actually hurt Black Tarantula, much less beat him. In fact, he's one of the few villains that Peter has said is more powerful than him. Spider-Man said that he was both weaker and slower than Black Tarantula in one of their fights. And not just that, but his Eye Blast, a lot like Cyclops, can definitely come in handy in a fight. No one really knows what Mr. Negative is truly capable of, since his power levels can vary depending on his form and energy levels. Criminals managed to kidnap Martin Lee and experiment on him with the D-Light drug, causing him to gain powers linked to both the Dark Force and the Light Force. Martin Lee has limited control of the Light Force, while his alternate form of Mr. Negative wields the Dark Force. Kinda Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation. Mr. Negative has the strength to punch Spider-Man through multiple buildings with just one hit, but we'll never really know what he is at his best since so much of his power levels depend on his different energy level at the time. Now, there have been a few different guys who have used the name Hobgoblin over the years, but the original was Roderick Kingsley. He used an advanced version of the Goblin formula to enhance his strength to superhuman levels, to the point where Hobgoblin's strength even surprised Green Goblin when they fought each other the first time. During Infinity War, the evil half of Adam Warlock, Magus, created powerful doppelgangers of a lot of different heroes, and while most of the doppelgangers disappeared over the years, a few of them have stuck around. One of those doppelgangers was Spider-Man, and cause he's a doppelganger of Spider-Man, well, he basically has all the same powers and abilities as Spidey. On top of that, he also has razor-sharp webs, razor-sharp teeth, and razor-sharp talons. If only Doppelganger had Peter's intelligence, well then he would be nearly impossible to beat. A lot like Scarecrow of Batman over in DC Comics, Mysterio doesn't necessarily have any superpowers, but he is the world's best trickster and illusionist. And that's how he's routinely able to go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man, constantly tricking Spider-Man and sending him on the strangest acid trips and some pretty wild rides more than once. Dr. Octopus isn't just one of the world's smartest men, but in his brilliance, well, he accidentally bonded 4 massive metal tentacle arms to his body, and thus started his supervillain career. Each of those metal arms can match up against Spider-Man, and with complete control over the arms, well, Doc Ock has proven himself to be one of Spider-Man's most dangerous enemies. Kindred is one of Spider-Man's most powerful and most mysterious villains. It's actually Gabriel and Sarah Stacy, twins who believed they're the children of Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy. But really, they were clones created by Harriet Osborn, who gave them a mixture of the Green Goblin formula, and then powerful demonic possession from Mephisto, transforming them into Kindred. And in pretty much every one of their fights, he's been able to overpower and beat up Spider-Man, showing off just how powerful he really is. Kane is one of the more complicated characters out there, as he originally started out as a clone of Peter Parker created by the Jackal. However, Kane was pretty quickly thrown to the side because he had flaws and the cloning process wasn't perfect. This led to him becoming pretty mentally unstable and developing psychosis. After spending some time as a hitman for the Mafia, well, Kane eventually turned his back on the criminal world and actually began killing anyone who he thought was a threat. Of course, this led to Peter Parker being arrested for murder. Whoops, that's some classic Parker luck right there. Now, being a clone of Peter Parker, Kane has all these same incredible powers as Spider-Man himself, making him an incredibly powerful threat. After a desperate attempt to save his own life, Dr. Michael Morbius injected himself with the DNA from a vampire bat. Of course, this transformed him into a vampire, stalking the night and sucking blood as Morbius the living vampire. While he was originally a pretty powerful villain to Spider-Man, Morbius is actually now more vigilante, who really struggles with his insatiable taste for blood because of his condition. Electro, or Max Dillon, is one of Spider-Man's most powerful villains, a constant threat to Pete, and actually a founding member of the Sinister Six. He has the power to generate hundreds of thousands of volts of electricity throughout his body. This typically looks like launching powerful lightning blast out at Spider-Man. But he can also fly. He's superhumanly strong and tough. Electro can even transform his entire body into pure, living electricity. Flint Marko was originally just a petty thief. until he accidentally gained his powers from exposure to radiation and allowed him to transform his body into sand. This in turn allowed him to become impossible to actually hurt or attack. He's literally sand, or he can turn as hard as stone in order to fight back. In fact, Sandman can even transform into a giant sand monster, easily being able to overpower Spider-Man and lift 100 tons. It really just depends on how much sand is around Sandman at any time. If he's fighting on the beach, well, he's dang near unstoppable. One of Spider-Man's strongest villains is the Rhino. Alexei Stistovich was originally a member of the Russian Mafia. Before he was chosen to go through a science experiment, was given superhuman strength and durability. Of course, the side effect was having a powerful suit of Rhino armor permanently bonded with his body. He's one of Spider-Man's strongest villains, being able to lift anywhere from 75 to even 100 tons. But what Rhino has in strength and power, he really lacks in brains and intelligence. That's often how Spider-Man is able to beat him. Norman Osborn is the corrupt founder and head of Oscorp, a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And after he took the experimental goblin formula to enhance his intelligence, his already unstable mind broke even more, causing him to become Green Goblin. And on top of that, it also gave him superhuman powers and abilities, allowing him to match up against Spider-Man in every one of their fights. He's been Spider-Man's greatest villain for years, his arch nemesis, and Goblin will always be known as the one who killed Gwen Stacy. This alien symbiote originally bonded with Spider-Man, causing Pete to become impossibly more powerful, and when it bonded with Eddie Brock, well, it did the same thing again, becoming Venom. And Venom has routinely been able to beat and overpower Spider-Man. He can lift up to 70 tons and mimic or copy all the same powers that Spider-Man has. On top of that, because Peter is bonded with the symbiote before, his spider sense doesn't actually work around Venom, making Venom all the more deadly. The Carnage symbiote is an offshoot of Venom who bonded with the brutal serial killer named Cletus Cassidy. And like Venom, the symbiote gave him superhuman strength along with all the other abilities from Spider-Man. But the kicker is, he was exceptionally more powerful than both. He was able to lift over 80 tons, which made him a challenge to both Venom and Spider-Man combined. Morlun is undoubtedly one of the coolest Spider-Man villains out there, and also the most powerful. He's able to absorb the life force of others, giving him an unlimited power source to draw upon, and he can track any person who he wants to. He can fly, he's incredibly durable, and he's even been known to cheat death on multiple occasions. He's defeated countless different iterations of Spider-Man. Every fight that Pete has ever had of Morlun, it's been the hardest fight of his life. There's no doubt that Morlun is the most powerful villain in Spider-Man's rogues gallery. He's just in a class of his own. But what do y'all think? Sound off in the comments down below. I know you're gonna have thoughts and feelings on this one for sure. If you stuck around this long and made it to the end of the video, that's amazing. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us. And if you want to go subscribe, well, go subscribe. You're going to see more videos like this one every single week. I'll see y'all then. I'll see y'all next time.